Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. It's a post-football Sunday Monday here. We're going to talk about that and some other things, but we got a lot of hockey to talk about. Eck will be joining us any minute. Russ, go ahead with the pre-show.
So two things were pretty prevalent for me with the NFL yesterday. Aside from my team, I knew what my team was going to do, so that's no big deal. And Mike knew what his team was going to do. Even though they won, he wasn't thrilled either. I'm not going to harp on any of that. What I was going to say is the two biggest things that I saw was if a team losing didn't fit a writer or analyst narrative, it was like, well, there was no preseason. They had no time to scrimmage. They didn't have anything ready. And then if a team did win, it was like, hey, they were so prepared. This is such a well-coached team, yada, yada, yada. And the biggest, I think, thud that we heard yesterday was Tom Brady not looking good, because what happened with that was Fox has literally scheduled like every Bucs game in prime time. And this is going to be a disaster, especially if they can't flex off of a few. Now, it doesn't mean the Bucs won't make the playoffs, but what I'm saying is Tom Brady is not the same, and Gronkowski is like a slow-moving asteroid going to hit the earth on ballot day.
This is Armageddon.
Yeah, it's like Armageddon. But at the end of the day, those two guys are not the same, and they have invested their whole weekly schedule into it. And to me, that's a big disaster.
Well, it's funny because a friend of mine who was very anti-Brady and anti-Patriots was rubbing her hands with glee at the fact that they looked terrible and that Brady looked terrible and they lost. But when Bill Simmons, who's like the biggest Brady backer in the world, was basically saying Brady's washed up and this is going to be a disaster, I mean, I have to take that serious, because if there was any semblance of him showing anything, Simmons would have backed him. But we're getting an echo. I don't know if it's you.
I don't know.
So one more thing, Mike, because I know Jan's time is limited. I don't want to eat into that. The last thing is, did you have anything to report about the Yankees or Aroldis Chapman?
Not that I
heard of. Why? What have you heard?
Didn't Aroldis Chapman have to go to the bathroom while he was playing and had to interrupt the game? I believe that happened.
Yeah, not that I saw, not that I heard. I mean,
yeah.
Better now.
Yeah, that's better now. And Jan, I just wanted to ask you this because I wanted an impartial third party. I thought that the Bills should have been up 35-0 in the first half, and that only by the stupidity of Josh Allen running the ball every second play did they keep a team which was terrible in the game. And they only won over the Jets, who could be the worst team in the league, 27-17. It was still close at the end of it.
Score doesn't really reflect how that game went. That game wasn't.
Yeah, they dominated the game.
But yes, Allen's 2 fumbles in the first half. His inability to protect the ball was clearly evident, but they were running at will on the Jets. They were moving the ball up and down the field on the Jets. In my Jets podcast, and the guy I do the podcast with is he's a Jet lover, but he definitely will take the positive side. We both completely ripped them to shreds, especially coaching staff and the quarterback, where the jury is still very far out as to whether or not he will be the future quarterback of the Jets.
That's the setup right there.
Of course, should have been way worse yesterday.
Jan, that is the setup. Joe Douglas has set it up so that you and every other podcast. Hold on. Well, you and every other podcast will write that Sam Darnold isn't the same, because he knew he was drafting a rookie on the line, and he knew he filled in a makeshift offensive line with cheap players, except the center. He knew that, and he knew he didn't have enough receivers. So he basically knew Sam Darnold was not going to have a good season, and he was waiting for everybody to basically say, yeah, he's taking a step back and he doesn't do anything, so he can now draft another quarterback in this draft. This is how he's setting it up.
And now that Le'Veon there. Go ahead, Jim.
Russ, I'll agree with you that the talent around him isn't substantial. I'll also agree with you, regardless that, A, he had time to throw yesterday. B, he still makes these same stupid plays where he scrambles and tosses it. He doesn't scramble enough where there's lanes available for him. He had guys wide open in terms of Crowder on an out route that he overthrew him by 5 yards. So the narrative that Douglas is setting him up for failure works only to a certain extent, because when your quarterback plays into that narrative, when he had chances not to, that's on him as well.
And now that Le'Veon Bell is injured his hamstring, their number one running back is the Methuselah known as
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, the coach put him in hurt. But the other thing is, Jan, my only other thing I would say about that is Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. Carson Wentz had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. If you don't have time to throw, and Darnold did not have time to throw, his pocket broke down most times, you're not going to be good in this league. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. All right, let's get started.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I did watch some football yesterday, by the way. I enjoyed it.
How was the lose to Washington?
The Washington Football Club.
Yeah, you lost to a team with no name.
Yeah, I watched. I don't really care much about what happens in the games, but it was interesting to watch. I enjoy watching.
It was an interesting game. I actually watched it.
I watched part of it, but I was, it was a beach day. It was beautiful yesterday on the beach. So anyway, let's move on. Here we go. Ready?
Yes.
All right, Hockey World. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, September 14th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Jan Levine, and we could see a team go home today.
Yeah.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you from my bathroom while the downstairs is still being.
That comes from his bathroom. The rest of us are not there, just making sure we're clear.
Right. There's stuff happening in my house downstairs that makes it way too loud right now.
I normally keep my diplomas and my books in my bathroom.
I know. So this is like
He's there on Mike.
to make it not like this, like the bathtub talk with Eklund here. So you don't want that. You don't want that show. It's another podcast I do. You can find that up, kids.
That's a shitty show.
Search hard enough out there. You can find that one. But yeah, it's like I'm so sick of working out of my bathroom. I feel like I'm being quarantined, but I'm not. Anyway, here we are. And yeah, let's first talk about the two series now that are 3-1. And when we left, we all talked about we'd be looking at how game 4 would play out, and we got to see game 4s play out on Saturday and Sunday. And let's start first with the one I think that's most interesting, which is the Vegas and Dallas series, which is Hudobin, UFA Hudobin is starting to look like he's going to make some money this summer somewhere.
And it's funny because I was the one who picked. Everybody picked Vegas, but I picked Vegas with the longest to win in 6, and obviously that's shot to hell. And now Dallas is at the precipice of getting to their first Cup final since the year 2000. But it's funny because we were talking about this yesterday. The fact that Vegas outplayed them in that game, in game 4. They dominated. They had an opportunity to tie the game. It was a window of about 6 or 7 minutes late in the second period where Pavelski scores a fluky goal, and they get the power play goal. And Khudobin slams the door in the third period, especially during that 5-on-3 where Vegas didn't do themselves any favors in terms of putting players in front of the net and getting good opportunities. But, Khudobin made a lot of great saves. But I don't rule out the possibility of Vegas coming back in this series if Mark Stone is relatively healthy. And I don't know whether that's the case because after taking that shot off of his foot, he was not the same player. But Dallas may have lost Fox didn't play in game 4, and they may have lost Rupe Henson. If they lose those two, then that brings them it brings their depth down a little bit, and that could hurt them. So this series is not over yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's over, but Stone clearly is a big cog who's not going to be right the rest of the series. But look, Khudobin's played well. There's no question about it. He's going to get a contract. That's obvious. What they do with Ben Bishop is probably the bigger question because they're going to keep Khudobin. So Dallas is playing their game. They look great. I would have to think
they're stealing these games. It's
no, they're outplaying them with hard work. They really are.
They're getting outshot badly, though. Really badly.
Yeah, shots. I
wouldn't say they're outworking them. I think they're out opportunity. They're opportunity them. I
think in the corners they're playing harder. I think for whatever reason, Vegas is not playing their A game. And other than Stone, they really don't have an excuse other than I think Dallas has imposed a certain amount of will on them. And I do think Bonus is the better coach. I thought that the whole series. I just think
Dallas has a good blend. They've got that blend. They've got that magic, Stanley Cup team blend going on, right? And that's something that we're seeing grow more and more, I think, as it goes along. But I mean, I think the two best teams right now in the playoffs that I would like to see in the Stanley Cup final would be, I would love to see Vegas and Tampa play each other in the Stanley Cup finals. I mean, I think that would be a phenomenal.
It'd be great, but it doesn't look like we're going to see
it. It doesn't look like we're going to see it. I mean, it's not out of the
possible, but you never know.
But then when, and my wife's favorite statistic, it comes up again yesterday that, in the conference final, 38-1, if you're up 3-1, like only one team in the last 39.
Yeah, but that's not in the bubble. Like I'm going to,
Yeah. I agree. I hate these stats anyway.
But I also, because Zach, I think you're a believer with me. I do think home fans do affect certain games.
And I actually will tell you this, that I think Vegas is one of those teams that it affects in a big way. Like Vegas's home building isn't a home ice advantage. They have one of those fan bases that is a great place to play. They've got the whole thing beforehand. And I think that Vegas, has suffered a little bit by that. Mike, I guess it's just you and me. So I think that's about it. I think Vegas has suffered, from not having home ice.
Yeah, I think to an extent that's true. And I also think that maybe, and I'm sure he won't take any negative credit for it, but I also think that at the beginning of this series, the controversy that Alan Wall stirred up about Marc-Andre Fleury did not serve Vegas well. I don't know if it breeded discontent, but it was a distraction. And they clearly at times, I think, have played distracted. Now, will it kill them? Like I said, I still think they have a chance here. If injuries become an issue, if Hintz doesn't come back, if Foxa doesn't come back, those are two key players for the Stars. Then you're talking about probably inserting a guy like Jason Robertson into their lineup. Maybe they go with 7 defensemen and 11 forwards. That could change the course of the series. And I mean, Russ, Jan, you first because you haven't had a chance to talk. Did you think that Leonard was responsible for that loss? Because I didn't. I mean,
he gave up one goal. I mean, the fluky goal that deflected off the stick that went over the shoulder.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Again, I don't think getting in trouble of it. And I think also your comment about being distracted. It's a narrative we spin when it fits us, right? Because if they had won, all we'd be talking about is they were able to put the distractions aside. It didn't end up bothering them. They were able to focus on the goal and win. Now that they're losing, it's become let's fall back on that quote-unquote distraction. As Russ said,
Dallas is playing well. Leonard actually called it a distraction, though. Like Leonard actually.
Yeah, but I don't think it's bothering him while he's between the pipes. That he's like, wait, I need to stop this because if not, they're going to call for Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't think that athletes don't take that with them all the time onto the ice itself. I think that it's a narrative we speak about afterwards in order to help sell the story of what's going on, but I don't think that's him. And Dallas has played well. Vegas, to a certain extent, has gotten unlucky in certain instances because, in my opinion, if that Pavelski goal doesn't go in, I think they win that game. I think that changed a lot of the tenor because I think it became here we go all over again.
Yeah,
this is what's happening, and that's what changed it more than anything else, in my opinion.
One of the more interesting things that we've seen in the bubble, and I think, I'd love to do like a statistical reading on this. And it would take a lot of doing, but I can't remember a playoff where we have seen a team score and the other team score fast as often as we see it happen in this.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours. You're right.
We saw obviously yesterday in the Islanders, but we see goals like 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 18 seconds apart constantly in this playoffs.
I do think some of that is mental lapses, but I'll talk about that with the Islander game. The other thing is, even though I do not blame Leonard for anything, I still think we probably see Marc-Andre Fleury in net because of the change. Yeah. Because I think for whatever reason, DeBoer is going to have to shock his team into playing the right way, and I think the only way he could do that is by changing the goalie.
And here's the thing about that. Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't played badly in the playoffs.
No.
And at the end of the day, in a game like this, down 3-1 in the Stanley Cup, semifinals, essentially in the conference finals, Marc-Andre Fleury's been there before. He has been in this situation, and that means something as opposed to Robin Leonard. I mean, that could help calm your team down. He can go in there, like I've said before. Marc-Andre Fleury should have a C or an A on his shirt. He is that kind of player for that team, and putting him back in there, having him come in there, and guys, we were down to Detroit, and we came back. They were down 3-2 to Detroit and won the Stanley Cup. Remember?
He's the greatest goalie in the history of the franranchise.
Mark also 3 games to 1 on the Rangers and blew a 3-1 lead also. So
yeah, no, it's true. Right. So it's happened, but Fleury has been in this situation before. And if Leonard's saying like this whole thing is a distraction, I'm going with Fleury because with me, Leonard's head's not there. And I'm not saying it's Leonard's fault, but
I see. I don't. Like I said, I don't think it's the fact that Leonard is distracted. I think it was an overall team distraction. and it was just not needed. You have to be single-minded in purpose when it comes to the playoffs. And I take glee in the fact that Alan Walsh is the villain here because it's stupid. And it's maybe reflective of the fact that a contract has been signed or is, basically they said, well, nothing is complete. Well, if it's in the drawer ready to be signed as soon as the season is over with, then it's signed. It got out, and then probably he heard about it. But you don't put out a friggin' cartoon with a broadsword stuck behind his back in the middle of the playoffs. It's asinine.
I mean, it would go a long way right now. If I'm Marc-Andre Fleury today and I fired Alan Walsh, that would do something. That would be a statement.
It would, but then it also creates another problem.
That's another distraction you don't need.
And it also perhaps makes it into something bigger than they wanted to.
Right, you got to leave it alone right now.
Me, I mean. This is a really.
You may fire him at the end of the season, but he probably will wait.
This is an instance. Yeah, this is an instance where he's doing best by not saying anything, right?
Just so if your proposal is you're going with Fleury tonight, and they somehow win regardless of the score, you're then proposing you got to ride Fleury then for.
I'm not proposing anything. I'm just saying.
X said about playing Fleury.
No, all right, that's fine.
You have to be prepared that you're riding him the rest of this round.
I don't know about that.
It depends on how you win.
If you win, how do you take him out?
No, if you win the game like 4-3 or something like that, Jan.
It depends how the game is. Yeah, it does.
If you win the game 2-0, yeah, I'm going to stay with. Yeah,
we've seen relief appearances already throughout the bubble that wouldn't normally happen in the playoffs. This would not be shocking if Fleury came in and then he came out again.
Right, but if you win 4-3 and you haven't pulled him, and you end up winning, and your viewpoint was you thought he gave you the best shot to win to extend the series that was 3-1.
Yeah, then he stays in.
It's now 3-2. Changing your mindset is a flip-flop now when you've now got the win you wanted to get to that next game.
Well, what if he goes down 3-0 and they win because of him and they win 4-3? I'm not putting him in again.
If he gets pulled and
but he won't, but maybe they didn't pull him and
him out. Yes.
Okay, so he gave up 2 goals and they had to come back for a 3-goal win. Then I'm probably not using him again anyhow.
Yeah,
but I probably am just using him right now today, not thinking about tomorrow. That's the way I'm using him.
Okay.
I feel like it's a tough spot to put Marc-Andre Fleury in. First off,
that's why you pay him. That's why he is that guy,
right? And I think he's okay with that. And if any player has been used to this kind of thing, it's him. I mean, he's been in this same exact spot before. I mean, like I said, there's a guy. You're talking about a guy who's won a Stanley Cup and also been involved before on a team that went to a Stanley Cup final. With Vegas, also was on a team with Pittsburgh where we watched Murray play in the playoffs, where in a season that Marc-Andre Fleury got the Penguins to the playoffs, and Murray wins the Stanley Cup. So he's been through all these scenarios. This is not, it's a very interesting goalie. I mean, there aren't many goalies you can say that have been through that scenario like every possible way, but he has.
It's true.
So how this plays out is going to be really fascinating. I think there's a bigger spiritual lift to that team with Marc-Andre Fleury in goal tonight. Like, I think that gives them a little bit more of an umph because of the way Leonard is, which works to his advantage and to his disadvantage a little bit. He's fiery and stuff like it, but he can get too pissed off at times like that, and he doesn't have like the same kind of like calming factor, I don't think. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a really. I mean, DeBoer has put. DeBoer is basically, in my opinion, at this point, even though Leonard has some amazing numbers. They're almost in a situation where when you have 2 goalies, you have no goalie. Like it feels like that to me. Like,
I don't feel like that. I don't feel that way in this one.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Now, when we change series, we may have a chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, so let's go. So I mean, I think Dallas deserves all the credit in the world here. I love what they're doing. They're a fun team to watch. Their games are exciting. A Dallas-Tampa final will also be exciting. There's no two ways about it. It's definitely not going to be a ratings grabber, but it's going to be exciting.
I joked about it as the non-tax state cup final, and honestly, I mean, I'm serious. That really can't be underestimated.
Yeah, something to that.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, the NHL with the new CBA didn't address the unfair advantage that teams in non-tax states, and that's Nashville, I believe Arizona, Dallas, and the 2 Florida teams have over teams like Montreal or Buffalo in a high tax state, or the Rangers or the Islanders or Toronto. I mean, there is a distinct advantage now, and it's
only an advantage, Mike, if players are wanting to make that every last bit their last dime, some players do take a good contract and go because that team thinks they can win. They can think they can win with that team too.
True, but the thing is that those teams have more money in terms of cap space to operate with, because Steven Stamkos wasn't going to take $8.5 million from Toronto because the equivalent in Toronto I think was 11 something based on percentage of cap and based on taxes that he got it with 8.5 in Tampa. That's an unfair advantage, and teams have to navigate that. And
but he's also still taxed when he plays a road game, and he's taxed at the tax rate that's in the state that he's playing in, right? So I agree there's an advantage. We've discussed this before, and as much as we can advocate it, I don't think there's any sport that's modifying the structure based upon the tax rate that exists.
No sport has.
It's just not going to happen. We can rail all we want, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Mike. Yeah. Unfortunately, I just don't foresee that changing anytime soon.
I mean, Nevada also has a very low tax rate. I mean, they do have a state tax as opposed to some of these others, but they're another one that's really low. I mean, there's definitely. I know a player, years ago who played for the Montreal Canadiens and got traded to the Dallas Stars and talked to me about this. Like said, the difference it made in his salary. It was incredible. He said it was really just shocking to him. I mean, he always knew that he was paying a lot of taxes in Montreal, but it was shocking how much more how bigger his checks were in Dallas. But then again, he also said, but I was also playing for the Montreal Canadiens, which is incredible. So,
and that's something in and of itself.
It is something in and of itself. So that's like the reality of this whole thing.
And that's what you have to balance as a player. It's like, look, I get it. I can make more here, but if this is where I want to be, or this is a once in a lifetime chance, or they can win, then you got to just throw it aside.
I think of all the teams that do use this to their advantage most, Mike, it would be Tampa. I think you're right about that. Like I think Stamkos. The Kucherov contract. There are contracts that are slightly smaller there than you would think that they would be. You can say that's either because of the tax rate, or is it because of like the Crosby Malkin thing, where they're trying to stay together to and Crosby took less money, Malkin took less money, right? So
I think tax rate, as Mike said, does have a big impact in terms of the numbers, because if you're going to make 9.5 there, and it would be equivalent to 11 somewhere else, that does free up additional room for you in order to pay others, right? But the problem is you've talked about it before, Montreal and Canada. Canada's on the inverse.
Right.
Yet the NHL has not done anything to remediate that discrepancy either.
Okay, so let me bring up one more complicated thing.
Canadian teams have to pay people in American money.
Hold on. But let me bring up one more complicated thing.
They don't pay American money to buy tickets. And I've heard this. I've heard that people complain about this all the time, right? So yeah.
All right, so hold on. So if next year, let's say for some reason there are 4 hub cities, like that's what they decide on, and none of them are in Dallas or Tampa, their little tax thing isn't going to matter a hill of beans, because they'll never play there.
That's a really interesting point, Russ.
Although the contract,
my mother would be proud.
The contracts with signing bonuses were paid in July, and depending on where those players were living at the time, which probably, like for Tampa Bay players, was in Tampa, they got around it that way. A lot of those players.
I don't think a lot of the Tampa players live there. I think the Canadian Tampa players.
July was phase 2 and 3.
Right, they were starting to practice.
Well, you have to live there more than half the year, right, to be like where you are. So that's like you can't just get a place in Florida, if you're a Canadian.
Right.
No, but I mean, I know this for a fact because it was reported this way. Like Austin Matthews, with his contract, I think he's getting $700,000 minimum on the actual contract, and then the bonus is paid out on July 1st. He was in Arizona on July 1st. He is in Arizona on July 1st. That's then the bonus gets paid based on Arizona state tax.
That doesn't seem right, because he doesn't live in Arizona for the next year.
That's the workaround that the Leafs have been using for the advantage that the Florida teams, they pay signing bonus, and especially with these players, like in terms of Ontario, and I'm not a tax attorney, but apparently the tax rate on a bonus is different than the tax rate on a salary. It has a cap, so if they pay Mitch Marner $15 million up to a certain point, it's either non-taxed or taxed at a lower rate. So that's
okay. But on a player on a 1-year deal, which these teams are going to sign players, if there's 4 hub cities, it's not going to be an advantage.
Now let me.
All right, well, you can check the tax code chart on HockeyBuzz.com later.
Let me just touch on the Tampa Islanders series.
Let's move on to hockey again. Yeah,
because it was funny how everybody was like, aghast at this before the game, Luke Shen and Matt Martin and Ross Johnston and all this like gathering at the blue line, Pat Maroon.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be like really much ado about nothing. It would be one thing if it was like 1976 and this was the Flyers and the Canadians, right? And
I love this kind of stuff though. This is
great. But really nothing came from it. So I don't
still that even the fact that it happened at all is kind of
But I just have to say this, and Russ called this. Because off the post he had said, I don't know if I would put Braden Point in the game for Game 4. Now he made a difference.
Yeah,
they're up 3-1 in the series, but he got hurt again, and now we don't know what his status is.
It makes sense.
Well, it
makes sense because you're trying to get to the Stanley Cup. You're better off letting him miss one more game if he's going to be healthier to try and get – because you knew the minute they put him in, the Islanders were going to cream him, and they did. But here's my problem with the series now. I'm back to Varlamov is a problem only because that blocker save that he hit into the net should never, ever happen. And that, I think, deflated the Islanders, and they checked out mentally, and that's the biggest problem what I saw. But let's let Jan go because he's going to have to go in a minute.
No, I'm actually good. My meeting got moved back.
Oh, okay. So
you can give a couple more evers. I got a little bit while longer, so throw a couple more evers in there, and then I can go.
Okay.
I'll say this. So here's the thing. I mean, I do agree with you that Varlamov can't let that go in, but I do also believe that Tampa is just way better than the Islanders.
Yeah.
And as good as the Islanders are
every other game. It's not like they haven't brought it every game where you could say Tampa is dominating every game because that hasn't been the case.
I mean, I picked the Islanders to win the series because I like the momentum they were on, but I'm going to be wrong in both of these.
Bryce is not in net.
Nothing is over yet, as we've seen in the past.
Right.
I know, but I was really proud of my 10-2 record going into this round, so I can tell you that it's going to be 10-4.
I'm not putting Bryce in net because this is a situation where if you have two goalies, you have none. I'm still going to have to go with Varlamov and hope that he straightens his head out. But
I think that you have to go with Varlamov. Yeah.
I also don't like what Trotz did in the sense that without Casey Kazikis, again, you knew you weren't going to have him. And Ross Johnston's playing, like that is just a tactical error because Ross Johnston can't play. At least Al Cole can play some minutes. That's a lot better than Ross Johnston can. He's a bigger body. He can control the puck at least. There are other players they could have played. I was shocked when that happened. And look, the Kazikis loss is a massive loss for the Islanders because he is that player that really makes a lot of things go for them two-way wise and just on bottom six wise. But I think they could overcome that, but Trotz has got to get it out of his head to stop trying to play that kind of lineup.
He has.
I think you need to move. I think you need to move Pajot back to the third line first of all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I wouldn't call it a waste, but some of his talent, that third line was cruising. And granted, he is a good fit still for the fourth line because he can do a lot of what Cizikas does and more. But I think it hurts him more not having him on the third line. The other question is, I don't know if they're going to take Devin Taves out of the lineup because unfortunately he's become a turnover machine at times.
Yeah.
He's had a rough series. There's been some talk about Johnny Boychuk. Islander friends who are friends of mine are all talking about Boychuk should maybe get in for Taves, given to see where they are right now and having to get Pajot back up off the fourth line to the third line.
But then that affects your power play because they've given Taves the power play, and now who are they going to give the power play? Back to Nick Leddy, and then Pulak will be
Boychuk on there a little bit. He can get the puck on. He's not great, but he can still get the puck on.
You got to go Leddy or Pulak.
Unless you go 4-1. Unless you go 4-1 and don't have the
4-1. They could do that.
I mean, Trotz, and Predators fans will tell you this too. He has this. He is one of those instinctual guys who will just go with guys because he feels something, and that has worked amazingly well for him so far. I mean, him bringing and I think the biggest example of that, would be oh man, I'm losing my mind. Sorry. I'll get back to it. But there's a certain player I'm thinking of, but I can't think of his name. Again, this was the same guy I couldn't think of before, who played for the Rangers, who was a Ranger, who was
for the Islanders.
He's with the Islanders now. Was a Ranger back in
Brassard.
Brassard.
Brassard. Okay.
I'm sorry, man. Oh man, I apologize. Anyway, so Brassard, I think the way he pulled him out. I mean, he starts him. He does really well. He realizes he's slacking off. He pulls him out. Puts him
that
back.
Was bad.
I mean, he played Brassard. He played Brassard perfectly, and Broussard, who's another UFA, is definitely did good for him in these playoffs, right? And he's a horrible, as you guys know, like he's a real loose cannon, unpredictable type player. Like Broussard,
no, but not in the playoffs. He's good in the playoffs.
It's nicknamed the Big Game Brass for a reason. Rangers fans named him that because of all the key goals he scored when they made a run a couple of times.
Yeah. In the playoffs, he makes some smart decisions. Like
right, he's a big moment guy. I agree. And then there are games, watch him in the regular season where he'll take shifts where he doesn't.
Regular season. I mean, it's a Claude Lemieux type thing. In the regular season, sometimes Claude Lemieux was a ghost. Nobody noticed him. But in the playoffs, he was money.
I mean, I think that there's no question that we're going to that I would be way more surprised for the Islanders to extend this series at all. Like I think that that Tampa sees it. I mean, Tampa is definitely one of those teams that just after what they went through last year is just on a mission, and you can see it. Like they clearly know what they want to do here. It doesn't matter if they're missing a key player or two. Even Stamkos, who is he? Is he ever going to play again for Tampa?
I think Stamkos is done for the season.
I don't think he'd be in the bubble if he's done for the season. I have to disagree with that. Otherwise, I think they would have sent him home.
He's in the bubble, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that
no? But he also may want to be around his team while they're going through this, providing kind of support to a certain extent. And he's a good guy for guys to pick brain on in terms of things he may be seeing during the game. So.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth a roster spot, though. And because, again, look at what happened with the Islanders. Both of their players, the minute they got hurt, they left the bubble. Like that's right. Normally what's happening. So that's
the thing I was questioning about that. Maybe I'm clueless here. I don't remember Kuhnhackl playing that much. So did he get hurt in practice?
Because I'm not sure. Yeah, that may have been the case.
Yeah, but it was both Cizikas and Kuhnhackl, and they were both out of the bubble, and they're not coming back. So they're done.
But here's where I'm against what X sort of building here, saying the Islanders are going to lose here. They only have 9 goals in 4 games. They're probably going to have a game where they score more than usual, and maybe this will be the game.
Yeah, no, I really hope so, because I want to say, not only did I pick them, I'd like to see them win, but I also think that, no matter what, this is a win for the Islanders. Like the Islanders have done more than I think anybody.
Yeah, they've done more than yes.
They're the only team that's left right at this point that had to play in too. Like they had a play-in round. That also is a factor, I think, right now, and it's starting to. I think that is what's interesting about the playoff play-in round now is we talk about how those games were meaningless. The other games that were played by the top 4 teams were meaningless, but the fact that you didn't have to exert that much emotional and energy into those games is starting to show on the Islanders a little bit here to me. But we'll see it as time goes on there. But that what the Islanders have done already is amazing. So we'll see where it goes. I want to move on.
We have to give Tampa credit. Look, Vasilevsky is a major goalie. We knew that. We knew he was the best goalie left in the playoffs, even though Leonard has the most shutouts and everything else, and he's the hot playoff goalie. Vasilevsky is the better goalie. Like we all know that.
Right.
But and look, Cooper's doing a good job. I have to give him credit because I killed him a couple years ago when they got exited in the first round, and he's doing a good job. He's doing the right things with the players.
Yeah.
Those guys are playing, and they're playing hard.
Cooper is such a tough one, isn't he? Because of this, from a media perspective, he's phenomenal. He's fantastic.
Yes. Oh, he's amazing.
There's nobody better ever. I've never talked to anybody. He talks. He doesn't talk down to you. He treats you like a human being. He's incredible. And then, but whenever I see him give, like whenever they show like a snippet of him doing a locker room thing or whatever, I'm underwhelmed by it. In a way that it's kind of fascinating to me. Like, I don't know.
Unless he's wearing his Aerosmith T-shirt or something like that.
Yeah, I'm underwhelmed. It doesn't seem. He's definitely the player-friendly coach who, and this I don't know, but I really want him to see him win because he's such a great guy.
I will tell you the one difference too in Tampa, besides Blake Coleman and the great pass, that was a great goal. But Yanni Gourde, when he was getting into it with Clutterbuck, standing up to Clutterbuck, trash talking Clutterbuck to the point where I think he possibly would have said something like, "You're old, get out of my face," or whatever. And Clutterbuck hits him in the face with a left, and he still was looking at him and laughing at him like, "Really? You really think that did anything to me?"
Yeah.
I think that's a problem because I do think everybody knows how banged up Clutterbuck is, and that's hurting the Islanders. And I think that is a mental edge now that Tampa has.
And I also have to say Matt Barzal is playing – he's definitely playing hurt because he got hit. He got a hit a couple times, went back to the bench and was wincing in pain.
If you watch him in the Philadelphia series and watch him in this series, it's like night and day. His game in Philadelphia, he was absolutely flying.
This is Brock Nelson's series for the Islanders. Like him, actually, and Josh Bailey. Like Josh Bailey's playing the best hockey of his life. And we killed the Islanders for that contract. But in the end, Josh Bailey's turned into a valuable player. But that's what they're going to have to get their scoring from. It's going to have to come from those guys.
It felt like Josh Bailey would, but it was so. I always kept waiting for this moment to happen. And it's those Garth Snow type things, right? Like, which is interesting. Yeah. It's like it goes back a ways. All right, so let's talk rumors for a second. I want to paint or for the rest of the show, I want to paint a picture here of what of a story that has been developing, and that is the Evgeny Malkin story. Okay, because I've been following Malkin for years, right? And we've all been following Malkin for years, but I've been following the fact that I was told, years ago by Coach King over in, who went over to Russia. What's his first name again?
Dave King?
Dave.
Thank you. Dave King, years ago, was told by him that Malkin will never be happy as a second-line center for his entire career in the NHL. That he will go there for a while and he'll be okay with it, but eventually he's going to want his own team because that's the way it works in Russia. And if you read Duhashik's book called King of Russia, King goes into it even more and says, that basically the Russian thing is that it's very similar to pitchers in baseball, where you want to be the ace of a staff, right? Pitchers want to be an ace of a staff. Russian players want to be the top line center. That's the ace of the staff, and that's how they look at it. So if you're not the ace of the staff, then you're not, and Malkin is on the one team in the NHL, where in his entire career, he could never be the ace of the staff unless, of course, Crosby.
I agree with you, but I think that was pre-family Malkin. I don't think post-family Malkin is like that because he never tries to get ahead of it with the media and try and lead.
No, he's not a media guy, though. Malkin.
Well, but you have to be. If you're going to be that guy, if you're essentially saying he wants to be Sidney Crosby, then he's going to have to talk to the media every day. He doesn't do that.
No, I think part of the reason he doesn't do that is because of the fact that he's not. I think we're in a circle here because I think, his psyche is, I'm not the ace. This is Crosby's team. And therefore, I can sit in the background. Does he want to sit in the background? I mean, when you've seen Crosby go out, Malkin has flourished in incredible ways, right? Malkin has been a much better player when Crosby's not in the lineup.
I would say that's mixed. I don't think we have hardened stats on that. I don't.
Well, no. I mean, he didn't win an MVP the year Crosby missed most of the season.
Sure, that was one time, yes.
We're talking about like a guy. No, he's 34 years old. Okay,
because his responsibilities went up, because his ice time went up. That's why.
Sure.
When it's easier to have a bigger chunk of the offensive firepower and output of a team when you don't have Crosby around and you're playing first power play all the time. It's sort of chicken and the egg type of thing.
And I'm not disagreeing you with that he might get traded at some point. Right. All I'm saying is I don't know if that's the reason he'll get traded.
I'm not going to say that's the full reason he's going to get traded, but I'm saying that's the reason that it's always been out there that it's possible for him to get traded, even from the very beginning. And there have been times when Malkin has definitely expressed it. I have good sources on this where Malkin has expressed that he's upset with the way things are going. He almost asked for a trade the one year that they went to the finals against and beat San Jose. But in the middle of that playoff run, he went back in and said, no, I'm okay. I shouldn't have said that before. And I'm here. And this whole thing changed. And you remember, Russ, we were talking about this as it was happening in the arenas.
Yeah.
But Malkin has this thing where, he definitely 100%, wants his own team. I really do believe that. I think he loves playing in Pittsburgh too. I think he's become a Penguin. He's been a Penguin for his whole career. However, the Penguins right now are on a mission to do something different. They realize that the last few years of the Crosby regime, they're going to have to do something different. In order to extend Crosby's window that they have with him, they're going to have to change things around.
Right. But the question is whether depriving Crosby of a viable 1B and putting more pressure on him as he's older in his career, that doesn't sound like an approach that's going to work. I mean, I think they feed off of each other. You can't put your number one checker against Crosby because Malkin is there, and you can't put it against Malkin because Crosby is there. You need
no question that helps him. There's but he has also Crosby has also not. His numbers have been fine with Malkin. Which I do this statistically. I've seen articles written about it before, but I don't have them right in front of me. But Crosby's numbers have continued to be good, if not better, without Malkin in the lineup as well. So there is only so much puck to go around at times. They are going to step on each other's toes. So the reality here is Rutherford is on a mission, obviously, to do something different. He said that he needs to change his team around. And there aren't that many teams that could take Malkin or give him what he wants from Malkin. So the 3 teams I've seen so far that have any interest at all right now this year, and there have been other teams other years, but this year is Winnipeg, which is interesting because it just is, because that's not a Cheveldaev type trade. And but I have good sources there, and so I'm surprised by that. San Jose, which again, as a team we've talked about before, that San Jose does have some big defensemen that they could maybe trade to Pittsburgh, that whose contracts are close enough that could make this maybe work. And Nashville, who is dying for a number 1 center that they can just hand the reins to, so that they don't have to continually rely on guys like Ryan Johansson and some of these other players who have been so inconsistent up and down. Right.
Well, I'm struck by the team that I would think is the number 1, which would be Montreal, because they've been dying for a number 1 center for years, and we know the history of them in terms of Russian players like Kovalev.
Yeah, no, I mean, he would be a great fit. He would go there. He could thrive there. He could be, he could be all that. I mean, being the ace in Montreal, that's everything, right? I agree, but I haven't heard their name mentioned.
Well, this is the interesting thing about Nashville, because we had Pete Weber on the Off the Post show on Sunday, and he was talking about Kyle Turris, and that the rumors in Nashville is that Kyle Turris will be bought out. And if you look at the contract, even though he's got 4 years left, it's a contract with no signing bonus.
Yeah,
it would be an 8-year buyout, but at $2 million a year for 8 years. That's not ridiculous when you're getting rid of a big contract like that. If they were going to make a move for a guy like a Malkin, that it would go hand in hand with Turris being bought out to open up space. But
I got to tell you, I know I wouldn't do it
out for you and see what you guys think of this. This is the rumor, and it's. I mean, part of this is rumor. Pete, I'm not going to say this is the rumor, but I'll describe it this way. One of these players has definitely been mentioned in the rumor, but also the formula, like a prospect of this, a number 1 pick, and all that stuff. We always hear those formulas. They don't always hold the case, but this is what it'll take, right? What they want first is an impact defenseman, right? They want an impactful defenseman that can, be in their top 2, top 3 defense.
So that would be either Ellis or Ekholm, because they're not trading Yossi.
Right. So Ryan Ellis is the guy that they want 100%. That is the guy that I was told that this trade doesn't happen without Ryan Ellis. Like, he is. And I can see, and when I think about Ellis on Pittsburgh, I'm like, damn, that's a good fit. Like, he is absolutely the kind of defenseman that they don't have that they could use.
That's your replacement for Letang when he retires into.
And in my opinion, he does way more. He's not as offensively talented as Letang is in some ways, but he does way more around the ice than Letang does. Right. And Ellis also has like that ability to be like a big power play guy. He's a clutch player. He's a character guy. He's a team guy that really, and he brings a certain kind of attitude that I think the Penguins need in that locker room right now. I think Ryan Ellis I don't think the Penguins have anybody like a Ryan Ellis in that room.
Yeah.
I think that'd be interesting. So then after that, they want a prospect that is ready to play in the NHL. And that name is Eli Tolvanen. Okay. So, all right. So there's a prospect. Now, he's had an up and down journey, right, Russ? I mean,
he has, but he still has a great shot. At the end of the day, he still has a great shot.
Sidney Crosby or somebody can give him the puck, Tolvanen could turn into something.
I mean, it depends where his game is at defensively. I honestly don't know where it's at. Yeah. And that's what – look, but again, right now, I think Mike Sullivan pretty much has to take anything that happens over there because he didn't even get to choose his assistant. So he's on the hottest of seats right now.
Right.
And so I don't even think he could say, I'm not going to play this guy if Rutherford wants him to. I don't think Sullivan has much power anymore. So you're right. It may be something they could explore.
And then after that, you're looking at a number 1 pick and maybe another pick in there. So that's the kind of deal that happens.
See, the problem with this is one, like I said, the Turris situation. Second of all, I mean, you signed Matt Duchene for $9 million a year, I believe, to play center. And now, if you're going to acquire Malkin and then Ryan Johansson is your number 2 center is making $8 million. And the guy that you signed to play center, you're now moving him to the wing, and he's going to be one of the top 10 paid wingers in the league.
He's a good winger, though.
Yeah, but
he's not that good.
I think
he's not that good.
I think Duchesne makes a lot of Giroux in that way. Like I could see Duchesne making a really nice transition to playing the wing with Malkin. I could see that being a serious.
I don't know about that. He's been a center his whole life.
For Duchesne,
he doesn't play along the wall. Like I don't think that. And I'll tell you what, David Poile needs to stop picking up older, aging players like Malkin. This is not a fix for him. It's really not.
And the thing is, what Kevin said on Friday regarding, I mean, you would think, and we talked to Pete about this as well, you would think that the area that Nashville would devote some financial resources to would be goaltending, because Rene is almost, it looks like he's almost done. And I think we have been convinced that Saros is not a future #1 NHL goaltender. Even though their stats were good during the regular season, they didn't play well in the playoffs. But they're not. According to Pete, they're not going to. They're not going.
And that flat out, like I got that the day I wrote a rumor about it, and I got an earful about it from them about that. They are not going to change their goaltending situation.
I think the bigger issue, though, is as Mike said, you're paying $6 million for Duchesne and Johansson, and you're not getting from Johansson and Duchesne anywhere remotely close to $60 million of production. Now you're adding in Malkin's salary, subtracting Ellis. Your big push, your big asset on your team has been your top 4. Now you're reducing it, hoping that Frabro does take that next step up, which hurts you defensively.
Right.
Pittsburgh side, look, they definitely need the blue liner. Jared McCann is not your #2 center, so now you got to go about finding a new #2 center to replace the production that you're losing from Malkin also. And Greg, I agree with you. Look, there's been a lot of talk. Malkin has always wanted to be the #1. And he's in a situation where there is a 1A and a 1B, and there's been enough chatter that Malkin is at the same level or close to it for Crosby. Mentality may be different, but it does make sense. But then you're also creating gaps for both teams that now have to be remediated. I'm not quite sure how either one of them do that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, but what we've seen with Rutherford is clearly willing to go out and make trades. Like he could. I think it gives him some ability to make another move, perhaps.
And the thing is,
and also you also can't underestimate. The last thing I'll say, Mike, sorry, you can't underestimate the star power that Malkin brings to Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is also
he's 34. I mean, come on.
But is he willing to be the face of the franchise? As Ross said, if you're going to be the guy in front of the media, does he have the personality to be that guy? Right now, Crosby's the one that deals with a ton of that because that's just who he is. And that's just what he's been since he's been probably 14 years old.
Yes. Malkin's never shown any ability to do that, Jan. You're absolutely 100% right.
That's huge.
To the point where Malkin pretends not to understand what you're saying to him, which is like one of the biggest frustrating. He's one of the more frustrating Russian players to interview. Right? I don't know if you've been in this, Russ, but he'll pretend he doesn't know what you're saying.
This year he's been better, though, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten better, but early for many of years of his career.
Yeah,
and from the Pittsburgh perspective, that you can't ignore the fact that Malkin's got this year and next year on his contract, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. And if they feel, even though he'd be 35, I believe at the time, if they don't feel that they can re-sign him, then they may preemptively move him for what they can get for him. And because Crosby's under contract for 5 more years, they just try to build around Crosby and bring in another #2 center. I mean, I get that, but everything right now has been Matt Murray and to a lesser extent the chatter about Letang. I unless Rutherford is keeping his cards way close to the vest, I just don't see it.
I mean, I'll be honest too. I don't think there's a magic pill for Nashville out there. I don't.
I'm not saying there's a magic pill, but I'm just saying that I think if you were to tell me all the guys that are 34 years old, I have not noticed Malkin taking a step back at 34.
Well, go look at his points. He's never going to reach 95 points again. He's been 70-something points the last couple of years. He's been missing.
He also has settled into like an incredibly productive two-way.
He's also missing more games every year, Eric.
Yeah, he's missing more games. No, there's no question.
I mean, that's all the aging function. He just he's better than most at 34. But if I'm Nashville, I can't bring another 34-year-old in there because everybody's going to be 34 on that team after a while.
Remember, he supposedly devoted himself to getting in the best shape of his career last year because he had, he only scored a point per game. And he was a -25. He had easily his worst season. And this year he came back 74 points in 55 games and was a +7. So he was better. But again, 34 years old and a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
He missed 13 games this year.
But he's an amazing. Yeah, but that's still it's still 74 points. I mean, I'm not going to sit back and say, obviously he missed games this year. He got hurt, but also he is in incredible shape. I mean, the stuff he did, and from everybody I've talked to, I could see him playing to 48 years old without any problem.
Yeah, but you're now telling me I should mortgage more future to get this guy who's got 2 years left and probably will not re-sign with my team anyhow.
Right.
Like, I'm not doing it.
See that, and that's the thing.
No. Why would you think he wouldn't re-sign with your team?
Because I happen to think Malkin at that point may just be done. He may just retire.
He's different than Ovechkin in my mind. Like,
I don't know about that.
Well,
I think he is 100% different than Ovechkin. Actually.
You can't gauge whether he will, like, especially if he gets traded someplace. You can't gauge whether he's going to re-sign with that team or not, and that's what mitigates the potential of Rutherford being able to get a return like you're talking about. I mean, I'm telling you right now, David Poyle's not giving up Ryan Ellis for a guy who's 34 years old.
He can't afford to.
Yeah, because their defense is depleted. They don't have the defense that they had a few years ago. Right now, they have Ekholm, Ellis, and Yossi. And a promising Fabro, that's not. They
actually need a good draft. This draft, they're starting to have problems with prospects in their system. All this does is make that worse.
What I like about this topic of discussion, though, and so far even on my blog, which is like been lit up by it in a very short period of time, is that this is a trade that both teams think is bad, which is always fascinating to me.
Right.
When that happens, where like we're not giving up Ellis for Malcolm. I'm not giving up Malcolm for Ellis. Like it's like that kind of stuff. It depends on, and honestly, it does fit the needs that both teams have. It really does. Like when you have a bunch of guys and I'll even throw Forsberg in there now on Nashville, who are so streaky at scoring. And
see, I think it met the needs of these teams 4 years ago. Not now. When they had Seth Jones,
no, but not 4 years ago is a super.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why it doesn't make any sense, because they've got their number one center. It's Ryan Johansson. Unfortunately, he's not a number one center.
But they are the oldest team in the NHL. They're at 28.7. They're older. They're the oldest team in the NHL, at least according to this website.
That doesn't matter. They're an old team. Let's say.
They're an old team. You can't advance this. You can't bring in any more age. You really can't. As a matter of fact, they have to sort of stick with what they have, hope that they can make some good moves, cheap good moves, probably bring up Tolvanen. I wouldn't buy Alturas because it's still 30 points to you. I know you're going to have a cap savings, but he's going to go somewhere else and probably score 45, 50 points because of whatever is the void of not scoring points there. They're not want dead cap space in this era because there's not. It's probably going to be a flat cap next year too.
Yeah, and looking at
let's throw in the chat. Let's go in the chat room for a second. And this concept of Malcolm for Burns. We're talking San Jose now. Okay, so if we're looking in that direction, give me your thoughts on that possibility.
No, I think that's a possibility. I think there's a good reason to say yes for both of them, except I think Burns has a no move in his contract. That's the problem.
Yeah, but going to Pittsburgh is
but he loves it where he is. He is that California kind of guy.
That kind of guy. I don't disagree, but there is a definite draw to going to Pittsburgh for people.
I don't know. I don't think he would do it.
They just love to play with Crosby.
I think the idea of it works.
Burns has a modified no trade.
So he has to make a list.
Yeah, a 3-team list every year. So basically, it's a no move because it's only
3 teams he will go to.
3 teams he will go to. Yes,
right.
I wouldn't. I would imagine Pittsburgh could be. He could be convinced that.
It could be. We don't know though, and I just think, unfortunately, it's one of those things where the trade would work, but I don't think the player would do it. That's really where I'm at.
Yeah,
and the comparable here is Burns is 35, Malkin is 34, but Burns has got 5 years left at $8 million.
Right. Pittsburgh can't afford to do
Yeah,
that.
that to me that's a dangerous thing for Pittsburgh to do. And
I think Carlson with $11.5 million for that many more years is way worse. So
right. And actually, I think the worst bang for the buck of all of them is Vlasic with 6 years left at $7 million.
Yeah, Vlasic's the one that kills him. The other guys still are very valuable defensemen. Vlasic kills them.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Now, the trade that happened, or even though it was the trade of rights, to negotiate over the weekend, the Edmondson deal to Montreal, just illustrates even further that Mark Bergevin, I don't know if he knows what he's doing, because this is a team that can't score, but now, if they sign Edmondson, and I'm not saying that would be a bad signing because I think he's a good four or five defenseman. You wasted $4.35 million on Jake Allen for next year in a year where cap room is king, and now you trade another draft pick for the rights to Edmondson, and now you're going to spend $3 million on a defenseman, which is the area that you probably least need to address. If it's left side defense, that's to the Leafs' it's right side, to the Canadians it's left side, and you haven't even touched your offense yet.
I would say they at least need to address that, though. I don't think that's true with Montreal. I mean, I get what happened in the playoffs where they couldn't score, and their defense looked pretty good. But in reality, when we look at Montreal over the last couple of years, we say that they've got some offensive guys that are coming, prospects that are going to be better.
They do, and they've started to show already.
Defensively, they're in trouble. Like that's what we've said in general.
Well, I think Suzuki's coming, and I don't ever think Kotkaniemi is going to be a big scorer.
I don't know. I think Kotkaniemi turned the corner actually,
but Russ, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a 35 goal scorer. I think he's going to be a decent player.
25.
When you're leading goal scorer,
he's an impact player. He's an impact player.
When your leading goal scorer has been Paul Byron the last couple of years, you're in trouble.
I will say this. I think he did this for the benefit of his whole goaltending system, to give Price days off, to give Primo a chance to develop, and also to put defense in front of Price, who showed he still has it. And I think that's what his first focus was. He's not done. He's going to trade Ty Domi. He's going to get somebody offensive for Domi. Max Domi, sorry. Ty Domi, a little different. They're going to play Ryan Poehling next year for sure, and that's going to give them a little more offense. This isn't going to be a team that's going to get a sniper. They're not.
Maybe they can find somebody to take Drouin off their hands, because he's been an underperformer in the last.
And they'll probably offer sheet Matt Barzal. We know that's coming.
Yeah, so
and an offer sheet that can be easily matched, so we'll be all good.
Exactly.
And Allen will get exposed in the expansion draft next year.
No, Funky brings up a good point. Caulfield.
Yeah.
Maybe in a year he'll be there. But I'm talking about the immediate future, and I'm like, the immediate future.
I gave you immediate guys. Yeah.
Right. And you. If you're not being beaten over the head, you realize that Montreal's problem is they can't score goals.
Okay, but wait. The Islanders are a team that has trouble scoring goals. We just illustrated it. If somehow by bringing in Edmondson and shoring up the backup goaltending takes off a half a goal a game to 3/4 of a goal a game, that might be all they need, Mike.
Yeah,
Plus, with the expected rise of Suzuki and Kotkaniemi,
what you do here is you actually make Price. You get way more out of Price by doing this. That's the end.
There's no question.
Allen's about making Price's contract more valuable. To be honest, it's like because you have Price signed for a lot of years, and you've got to keep Price healthier. You got to keep Price sharper. And Allen is only a 1-year deal. It's not like he's a one. If they could re-sign him as a UFA, and I think that's their plan. Actually, I think their plan is to bring him in there, show and because they like him, and say, okay, you can be the ultimate type backup goalie that we have here. You like playing in Montreal? Let's sign you. Let's extend you. I could see them extending Allen as well, and solidifying that part of things at least for now.
No, I agree. I don't think they're going to make any kind of big gains, but I think if they make a few small gains, they at least showed, hey, you know what? Price can still play. The defense plays tough. So does Edmondson. That's going to be that's what Claude Julien works with. They're doing this for their coach too. Yeah. This is what their coach is used to. You got to try. So that's what they're going to do. I personally don't think that this is a bad thing, what they've done so far. And they have cap space. So
right now they do, but next year they're going to have a lot of decisions. Tatar's a UFA,
sure, but that's next
Gallagher's
year.
a UFA, Philip Deneau's a UFA.
Yeah, that's next year.
Those are big Petries at UFA. There's a lot of decisions.
But he doesn't have to address those right now.
I wanted to address Nick's question here in the chat room because I have heard this, and it's been out there, I guess, in other places too. That there's obviously Mario Lou and Ty Domi are buddies. They are longtime friends, and I think the Penguins would like Domi. I don't think though that he's what they are. I don't think that's the way they're going to go right now. From what I've heard.
Well, I mean, the key here is if they are interested in Max Domi, it would be in Max Domi as a winger and not a center.
Right. Yeah, that's obvious. Yeah.
2 years ago, Montreal, because of necessity, because they're completely bankrupt up the middle, they needed to use Max Domi at center, and he had his best career. He had his career year, and then this year, it didn't work. I don't know whether it was a struggle between him and Julian. He's not a great two-way player. He's an offensive player. And you want to play those guys, and he's not a big guy, so you want to probably play him on the wing. I mean, could he look good on the wing with either Malkin or Crosby? Sure, but the thing is, now you look at the Penguins now with the addition of Kapanen. Now they have Rust, they have Gensel, they have Zucker, they have Kapanen. Okay, you can only put 4 wingers on the lines with Crosby and Malkin. Somebody's got to play third line, fourth line, and somebody's got to play a checking role in defense. So
we got to figure Hornqvist is third line wing now.
Yeah. Right. A couple more things, couple quick rumors before we get out of here that I wrote about over the weekend. Tyler Toffoli, he's obviously came into Vancouver, was a good fit. They really liked him a lot. He really looked bright. He looked good on that team. He seemed to help solidify things. But Vancouver is a cap strap team. The way they're because of some obviously big contracts they're going to have to sign down the line, so they can't go long term with guys because by the time they're playing when they're paying Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, they're going to have issues.
Well, that's why finding somebody to take Louis Eriksson off their hands,
Eriksson, Sutter, Virtanen,
or trading
all of them, they can make it happen.
Trading
Virtanen made strides. Didn't you think that Virtanen is finally not accepted in that world?
I think he's tradable now. That's what I think.
Interesting. Okay, all right.
Depends on how much they're paying him. I mean, could they? Again, sounds crazy. Could they move on? Try to move Alex Edler, who's got a year left at $6 million.
Again, none of these are a problem if they don't re-sign Markstrom. None of it's a problem.
Right. Based on what Jim Benning said about Virtanen in his season-ending media availability last week, it's it's all based on what Virtanen is looking for on a new contract. They have money to spend, but they
know Benning is not giving Virtanen anything close to what he wants.
No, it's probably a 1-year deal at most, and then they'll make him prove it because he's tantalized them with his talent, but he hasn't met the expectations.
But he is tradable. Somebody would want Jake Virtanen because of the toughness factor too.
I don't know the connection between these guys. Maybe you guys do. Maybe they played together, or maybe they. I don't know. Maybe they know each other, or somehow. I mean, they're different ages for sure. So I don't know the connection, but I've heard somehow that there is a connection between Jack Eichel and Tyler Toffoli. I have no idea. I spent forever trying to figure out what the hell.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I have no idea what it is, but I've heard that Eichel has been actually.
Maybe they play Fortnite together.
Eichel's actually been pushing for the Sabres to get.
Vancouver gave up, I think, a number 1 to get Toffoli. That's a heavy price to pay for a guy.
Oh, they gave up Madden for him.
Right. That's a heavy price to pay for a guy for a short-term rental because I think the big point always was to attempt to sign him to a long-term.
Oh, they're going to attempt to. There's no question.
They're going to attempt to re-sign him. I just heard that that Buffalo is a team that they.
Well, it's more the Buffalo connection. Buffalo's been tied to Toffoli for years. I mean, a long time. It's
weird because it's specifically the source I talked to was specifically an Eichel friend. And
Toffoli's a good bowler. That's why he likes Buffalo.
Maybe it's just that Eichel's heard his name before and wants him there. I don't know.
He likes the
Other than Wisconsin, Buffalo is the bowling capital of the world.
I want to address Patrick Laine rumors real fast because I've been spending a lot of time trying to find anything to them, and there's really nothing to them.
I don't think there's anything to them.
They are. This is not a Cheveldaev type thing to do at all.
I agree.
To move him, even though He's a tough person to price. Like it's very tough. Patrick Laine is one of the toughest free agents to price, to figure out what he's owed or what he deserves.
Yeah, but the thing is here that there's no rush to really make this type of deal, because Laine is a restricted free agent with arbitration after this year because he signed the 2-year bridge deal.
Right.
So you still retain his value. I mean, if he has a big year, which he probably will, if he doesn't get hurt, and he scores 35 to 40 goals, his value is there. He's a big scoring winger.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that, if you think he's gonna step back, and I don't see any reason for that.
Wait, is there any reason to think that Patrick Laine might not want to play in Winnipeg?
No, I don't think there's a reason for that, but I do think points are down because Buffalo in that whole situation killed the team. Like it did. It killed them from the blue line in. It hurt that team. It hurt the power play. It hurt them all around. And I think everybody dropped a bit in points, and I think it affected their whole season. Now this season, there's no reason Winnipeg can't be better. It's just, yes, they still have to do something defensively. I don't think they're going to trade Laine to do that, though, because they have guys they can bring in.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Laine, he's making 6.75 now. He's an RFA. I believe he's arbitration eligible because it was after the 3-year ELC, it was a 2-year bridge deal. So, could they get taken to the cleaners in arbitration? And that's a situation that would, be leverage against Winnipeg, sure. And they do have big money on the books with Wheeler, with Connor, but they have a lot of cap space. I mean, and they have 4 more years of Scheifele at $6.1 million, which is one of the best contracts in this league right now. So I don't see the impetus unless Laine has told him, I don't want to play here anymore. I don't see the impetus to making a deal.
And for all the chatter after his poor year last year, he actually rebounded pretty nicely and was on 35-goal pace this season as well. And him getting hurt in the playoffs clearly impacted them as well this year.
And you know what I might do? I might bring in Ville Heinola and Dylan Sandberg and make that my third pairing. That's what I might do.
Right. All right, there you go. All right, well, we're gonna have plenty more rumors for you guys. It's getting crazy. I mean, I'm really starting to. It's funny, like you can just feel like your blood's starting to get going. Like I can feel like that, and it's bizarre because of the time of year and everything like that. It's we get to be such creatures of habit, but it feels weird. In September, September is usually like the last place for rumors. It's where rumors go to die. Like there's never any rumors in September or October. So because no one makes trades that early in the season. So this usually, but right now, so much fun. So we're gonna have a lot of fun, guys. And we appreciate you guys watching. We appreciate you coming to the site. And remember, without the buzz,